Hi, guys. It's been a minute, but I am here to finally talk about the May book for our 6 books for 2026 challenge. Well, not finally, it's beginning of June, beginning or mid June? No, I think it's mid June already. Yes. Um, well, not that bad. Let's say beginning of June. But things have been hectic over here, so I haven't had time to sit down and record this video, but here I am. So, as I was saying, today we are talking about the May book for our 6 books for 2026 challenge. If you don't know about this challenge, I will link it down below and here as well. But I talk about one book every other month here, so 6 books, and both books that I from this challenge that I have read this year so far this year have been amazing, incredible. So I read I was going to say To Kill a Mockingbird for some reason. A Movable Feast by Hemingway and The Power and the Glory by Graham Greene. And I highly recommend both books, and I also highly recommend this one, Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. We have read Edith Wharton here before. We've talked about The House of Mirth, and although it is quite different, it's more of a satire of New York, upper class society, let's say rich people. This is very, very different. But although they are different, the style is quite similar, and her profound way of writing is present in both these books. And reading the introduction, I came across another book of hers that I have never heard of called Summer, that is quite not exactly like this one, but it's more of a pastoral novella or novel. And here it says that Summer, that came 6 years after Ethan Frome. Ethan Frome was published in 1911, and Summer in 1917, was what Wharton playfully nicknamed Hot Ethan. So it's basically Ethan Frome in the summer. But those two are her more pastoral novels, and all the other ones that are very famous, like The Age of Innocence and The House of Mirth, and the other one that I forgot the name, they are more of satire, New York society, high society satire. But like I said, both of them, at least the ones that I've read, very, very similar when it comes to style, writing style, and the deep and just profound way of stirring things inside you. Let's just put it this way. But before we start, I just want to advise you, before you start watching the video and reading the book, if you're going through something difficult right now, if you are depressed or if you are gravitating towards depression, just be careful with this one. It is a beautiful, beautiful book, but it's also harsh and quite depressing. She is very gifted and can write in a beautiful way, but it's also harsh. It's the kind of writing that makes you feel things deeply. And whatever happens at the end of the book is also quite triggering. So, yeah, it's just an alert disclaimer. Be careful with this one. If you are in a good space right now, even if you're, going through something, but it's not that bad, I just wouldn't advise you to read this if you're feeling hopeless, because this book is full of hopelessness, and it doesn't necessarily bring you to a place of faith in your life that things will turn out okay. I hope I haven't given any spoilers. Well, I haven't, but I hope that you don't feel like I have. But anyway, let's just dive into the book. I just want to go ahead and skip the introductions. We have 2 introductions here. We have one by Cynthia Griffinwolf and one by Edith Wharton. I'm not going to really spend time on these two, although the author's introduction is quite interesting. She's just explaining why She wants to talk about this place, which is New England. It's a fictional village, I think. It's a really, really small village in Massachusetts called Starfield. And she, at some point in her life, she built her summer home. I believe it was her summer. No, it wasn't winter. It was definitely summer. I don't know. Anyway, she built a house in that region, and she started observing people. So she felt the need to write something different from what she was used to before. She, like I said, she wrote The House of Mirth and other satires about New York City's high society. And she just wanted to introduce Ethan's character, basically, with the introduction, and explain why. She even says it at the end. She says, I have written this brief analysis, the first I have ever published of any of my books, because as an author's introduction to his work, I can imagine nothing of any value to his readers except a statement as to why he decided to attempt the work in question, and why he selected one form rather than another for its embodiment. So the form that she talks about here is basically, it's a very short book. It's like 132 pages, but it's basically, we have a timeline. It starts at the present day with the narrator arriving in this village, and then we have most of the book 24 years before that, and then at the end of the book we have the present day. And what I will talk about this. I will talk about the ending of the book, the final chapter of the present day, but I will let you know when, because it is definitely spoilers, so don't worry about that. But she's talking about the form, and she even mentions in one of the, well, here I'm talking about the introduction when I said that I wouldn't, but anyway. So she says, I make no claim for originality in following a method of la grande bretèche, and the ring of the book had set me the magnificent example. My one merit is perhaps to have guessed that the proceeding there employed was also applicable to my small tales. So that's the form of the book that she's talking about. But yeah, let's dive in. Here, you must be thinking, who is Ethan Frome? Well, he's not the narrator. He is a man who's been living in this town for a long time. And the narrator, he arrives in the city, and he's an engineer. He's there to work. Actually, he's there in that region to work somewhere else. But because of the winter, because it's so bad, it's so heavy, he has to stay in Starfield and then go to the junction and the site, I believe, every day. It's like going to work, but he has to take the train and all that. So the book starts with the narrator going to the post office and running into this man. He is a bit crooked, and it wasn't really clear to me exactly how his disability was described here, but I know that he has something that you can see, well, people can see, and so much so that it's a topic of the narrator's conversation with other people. So he asks about Ethan Frome, and like they all talk about the smash up, right? Oh yeah, he had a smash up, so that was an accident that he was involved in. So that's what the narrator knows, but he gets really curious, and he starts asking questions around the village, and some people talk about it, some people don't, but no one really truly says what happened. They don't talk about what the accident was. We will find out, so don't fret. But they just say that he has spent most of his life in that village and on his farm. He has a farm that his parents left him, but that he spent most of his life taking care of his wife. There's even like one moment that one character says something interesting. They're talking about Ethan and the smash up, whatever the accident that he had, but that he also has stayed in Starkfield for so long. So he says, yes, he's been in Starkfield for too many winters. Most of the smart ones get away. And then the narrator asks, why didn't he? And then the character named Harmon says, somebody had to stay and care for the folks. There weren't ever anybody but Ethan. First his father, then his mother, then his wife. So everybody was sick, basically, in his life. And then the narrator asks, in the smash up, he was like, that's so. He had to stay then. And then he says, I see. And since then, they've had to care for him, for Ethan. And then the guy said, oh, as to that, I guess it's always Ethan done the caring. So we already know that he's someone who is very quiet, very mysterious, and that he's always seen in town by himself on his own, but that he has his wife at home and that she is sick, and he's always done the caring even after the smash up, the accident. But that's all he knows. What happens is that after a while living there, he one day, all of the horses in town are like cannot take him to the train station for some reason. I think they're sick or something. And the person who he is staying with, Ned, I think Ned Hale, Mr. Hale, tells him like, oh, what about Ethan Frome? He was like, oh, I don't think he's going to want to bring me there. And he was like, no, he can bring it there. And then he asks Ethan if he can bring the narrator to the station. And he says, yeah, sure. So they kind of like, they don't become friends at first, because like I said, Ethan is quite taciturn, or maybe I wouldn't use that word, not after reading the book I wouldn't use that word necessarily, but he is quite mysterious and quiet, maybe shy, and very monosyllabic. So the narrator is quite intimidated by that, but they kind of bond over this like magazine, scientific magazine that the narrator misplaces. And after we found that actually Ethan had it and was reading it and then gave it back to him, but then the narrator asks, oh, are you interested in science? And then we find out that Ethan went to school, went to physics, not physics school, but he went to school, like university, to study physics when he was younger. And then he had to come back home because his dad passed away, like an accident with a horse or something. And then his mom got sick and he was all on his own on the farm and had to quit school. So apparently he really likes physics and science, but they kind of bond over that. And one day, and then they spend like a couple of, I don't know, weeks, days going to the train station together and like kind of talking. And then one day there is a really bad blizzard, like bad snowfall, and like they can't make it to the train or something. I don't remember exactly if the train is gone. They hear the train going by, or there's a problem with the train. I just know that Ethan had to bring him to the site, and then on the way back, it was really late at night. The blizzard was horrific. At some point, the horse was so tired that the narrator had to get, off the wagon, yeah, the carriage sort of thing, and walk beside Ethan and the horse, because the horse was so tired. But then when they arrived at Ethan's house on the farm, that this is a really interesting part, because that's when we are invited into Ethan's world. And when they're at the door, the narrator can hear a voice of a woman whining, just talking nonstop and in a very whiny way. And we automatically think that it might be the wife, right? Because the wife was sick, and then you just immediately think that it might be the wife. But before they go in, Ethan opens the door, but before they go in, it stops, like the chapter that's not even a chapter, actually. Chapter 1 is the one that's about to come. This one starts this way, sort of like a pre-chapter. Then we have this, Ethan saying, come in. He said, as he spoke, the droning voice grew still. So that, careless voice was very loud and getting louder, but then we don't know who it is, because the chapter or pre-chapter is over, and then the narrator says, it was that night that I found the clue to Ethan Frome and began to put together this vision of his story. And then we start the story of Ethan Frome on chapter 1. And from chapter 1 up until chapter 9, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, chapter 9 is the last chapter of the book. The last chapter, because then we have the chapter that is in the present. So basically we have 11 chapters first and last one are in the present day, and then the 9 ones in the middle are 24 years before that. So yeah, chapter 1 starts when Ethan is 28 years old, and he is married to a woman named Zenobia, or Xena, and she is 7 years his senior. So the story of how they got together is explained to us after a while, and I think that she does that on purpose. So we think and wonder why is Ethan married to this lady? And that's because she is simply horrific. And I use this word. I didn't want to use this word because I do feel bad for her at a certain point, but she is actually horrific. She is very taciturn, like actually taciturn. She complains a lot about this disease that she has that we don't know what it is. And then later we find out that she might not have ever had it. I don't know if you've read The Sound of the Fury, somewhere over here, but anyway, I don't know if you've read it, but she reminded me so much of Mrs. Compson, the mother of the kids, who is always complaining, always sick, saying that whatever, her life is so difficult because no one cares for her and she's so sick. She's basically that way, but she's even worse because she's kind of devious, like kind of evil in some ways. Mistreats Ethan, and it's basically they have a horrible marriage, and they've been together for 7 years, which means that he's 28, they got together when he was 21 and she was 28. Yeah, so they've been married for a while, but Ethan is clearly very unhappy in the marriage, and she is as well, but they all are together, right? So anyway, it makes you wonder why is this happening? Why are they together? Especially after we are introduced to the third character here in the book, who is Xena's not niece, cousin. Xena's cousin. So basically, Xena brought this girl, her cousin, from Connecticut. The girl's name is Maddie Silver, and her dad was a criminal back in Connecticut, but like a white collar one. And he was arrested or died. I don't remember, but it's not in the picture anymore. And her mom passed away because I think she died of sadness or something. But Maddie has no prospects whatsoever. So Xena brings her to help her just basically survive because Ethan has to take care of the farm. The farm is not doing well at all. Let me tell you, like they have no money. They're very poor. And Xena, so he can't help around in the house, and Xena's too sick, apparently, supposedly, is too sick to do housework, so she brings Maddie. But Maddie, because she was like raised kind of rich, because her dad, like I said, like a white collar criminal, but she doesn't really like doing housework, but she tries. It's not natural for her to do housework, but she tries for sure. But that's the reason why Xena brought her over. And she has been there for a year. She arrived, I believe the summer before, and it's winter time now, or maybe it was the winter before. I don't know, but I think she's been there for approximately a year, a while anyway. And we soon find out that Ethan is in love with her. And at first you're like, oh no, I don't want to root for like any cheating to happen, but it's just written in such a beautiful way, in such a delicate way, that you cannot help but cheer for that. You don't want to read the moments between Ethan and his horrible wife, who is just, I feel like she's just the presence of evil, like not even evil. I feel like I'm being too hard on her, but like the presence of sadness and fear almost. So you eager to read the beautiful moments between Maddie and Ethan. So for example, his favorite thing to do is, or his favorite moment of the day, the best moment of the day for him is to go pick Maddie up from dances at church. So she has, I don't know how many days a week she has off, but sometimes she has days off from working in the house, and she goes dancing in town. and he picks her up, and they walk back, and we're following them, and it's like the span, I think, of 3 days, I believe. And he goes, like, this first day he goes to pick her up. Actually, before that, his wife tells him something about Maddie going away. And he's like, what are you talking about? Why would she go away? You need her here. And she says, like, oh no, she might get married or something. So have that in mind, that Ethan has that thing in the back of his head, that this kid, Edie, I think. Yes, Edie. He's the son of an Irish grocer. Apparently he likes Maddie, and apparently they're going to be together. So Ethan has that in the back of his mind, and he goes to pick her up at the dance and decides to just hide in the shadows and remain hidden during the whole interaction between her and Dennis. Edie, he tries to convince Maddie to, to go with him. He wants to give her a ride. And she's like, oh no, she's looking around, looking for Ethan. Ethan is hiding. You're like, just show yourself. But he just remains there. And she decides to not go with Dennis. And she says, no, I'll just go walking. I'm not going to go with you. And Ethan gets really happy about that. And I know I'm smiling. I know what happens in the end. But anyway, so he shows himself and they walk together. And it's really delicate. It's so sensitive, the way that they talk to each other. It's so kind. I'd say that word, the way that they talk to each other is they're just very kind to each other. And it's just so beautiful the way, when you're in love and you think about the person like 24/7, and you go over moments that you had the day before or even weeks before. Anyway, like the only thing you do is think about the person. So we feel that. Her writing is so good that we can feel it. It's as if we're there. We're one of them. I felt like I was Ethan, sort of. And I was feeling everything, like that tension of loving that person so much, but not being able to do anything about it, and paying attention to every single movement. And he really likes the way that she laughs, the way that she puts her head back and laughs, and the way that she just like closes her eyelids. He pays attention to every single thing that she does, and it's just so delicate. Like I know I've used this word like way too many times, and I will more probably, but it's so beautiful. It's so amazing. And they walk back, and it's like when they're almost getting home, it's like they're getting close to death almost. The closer that they get home, it's like, oh, it's the horrible feeling. And in the introduction, Cynthia says something about how that was the feeling that Edith had when she was going back home, because her mother was a bit like Mrs. Frome, Zenobia, in some ways, kind of like that person, like that vampire, that sucks the energy of everyone and like happiness. So I believe that's why it's so true. Like that's why it's like you're reading something that really truly happened, because she felt all those things. You feel like it's real. Like Xena is a real person. She's a vampire, and she's there sucking the energy and the joy out of the room. But anyway, they eventually get home, and they try to open the door, and the door doesn't open. And that's the moment where you kind of realize that Xena is trying to either mess with them, or, well, definitely mess with them, but also make a point and show that she's not happy with the situation. You already have that feeling when she talks about not wanting Maddie, not necessarily wanting Maddie, but saying that Maddie might not be with them anymore, and not really liking the reaction, like Ethan's reaction. Oh, something very important too. She notices like small things. For example, she notices that Ethan shaves every day now since Maddie has come, and you can feel the tension. Like, so she knows something is going on, but at the same time, she doesn't do anything. Like, she doesn't fight for her marriage. She just tricks people and like, ugh, I'll get there. But anyway, so the door is locked and they try to go in. And then she comes, opens the door. Usually, the door is open for them when they come back. So she opens the door in that first moment when we see Xena. She's 35, not 37. She's 35 years old, but she's described as an old lady. She doesn't have any teeth. So she wears dentures and she has like gray hair, but it's not just the gray hair, it's like everything about her. She looks like she's 70 years old, but she's 35. But she also looks like legit, like the way she's described here, it's like I kind of like imagined the witch from Snow White, you know, when she turns into that old lady. That's what I pictured, because it's not just because she's old, she's bitter, and bitterness has transformed her into that, the kind of like witch person. But anyway, so they go in and they go to bed. Everyone goes to bed. Xena's always complaining about how sick she is. And the next day, Ethan is just like going over things in his head, like why didn't he make a move the night before with Maddie? And also like why did he even marry Xena in the first place? So his story is like quite sad, actually. When his mom was sick after his dad passed away, he was really depressed on the farm by himself, and then his cousin Zenobia, but very very distant cousin, comes to take care of his mom. And after his mom died, like he just feels like he cannot be alone on the farm by himself. He was a bright young man and sociable apparently, and had a lot coming for him, and suddenly he's just by himself on this farm. Parents are gone, and he has this person who was taking care of his mom, and she was okay. So he was just like, oh my gosh, please marry me, don't leave. He actually, I don't even know if he said like marry me. If he asked, he just said don't leave or something like that, and then they got married. And it's like, part of me reading this book is just like, why did you do that, Ethan? Why didn't you just embrace loneliness? But it's easy for me to say. But anyway, so he's going through like over things in his head and like, how did we come to this? And when he goes downstairs for breakfast, Xena's all ready in her best dress and says that she's going to see a doctor. And he already feels the burden of the next thing that's coming, because he knows that she's going to have this and this and that with her health, that he's going to have to spend a lot of money, and he doesn't have any money. So it's like really bad in a way that she's going to the doctor, but on the other hand, he has time by himself with Maddie, and he's really really happy about that. And then she says, oh, bring me to the station, and the train station, and he says, oh no, I can't, because I'm collecting some money from Ned Hale, was the neighbor, and the father of the girl Ruth, who's the narrator staying with now. So not now, like before, the narrator staying with this lady who knew them, right? But anyway, Ned Hale, he says that he needs to collect some money, which is a lie. And he thinks, oh goodness, why did I say that? Because she's going to spend money, and then I'm going to have to pay whatever it is that she spent on. But at the same time, he doesn't want to. He wants to do his stuff and be with Maddie. So she is taken to the station, and he's very very happy that he's going to have probably 2 days with Maddie. And we get excited too. We're like, oh my gosh, like, candlelit dinner. Right? Oh, but it's horrible because it's cheating, adultery. Oh. But anyway, so he goes and tries to get the money from Ned Hale, and Ned Hale says no, that he doesn't have any money. So he comes back. Anyway, he works on the farm, but then he comes back home for supper, and I felt like I was there in love. And it's just so amazing how Edith can put that into words and like write a book that is so real. It feels so real. Imagine Maddie's there, dressed up. The table is beautiful. There is this red pickle dish on the table that she used for serving pickles, obviously. But the table is so beautiful, and we know that this pickle dish is a very very important piece of the puzzle, because it's Xena's favorite present that she got when they got married, her and Ethan, is from her great aunt or something. And it's a very, very important, special, expensive pickle dish, and she doesn't let anyone touch it. But Maddie wanted to make the table nice for her and Ethan, so she does that, and they're having this amazing dinner together. It's funny when he comes back home from work and she opens the door and he sees her, the difference, the discrepancy between Xena and her is very much clear in the book. And it's like a dream. He's living a dream. He's finally happy. And it's like his married life is not even a reality because Xena is not there. Her presence is not there. The house is lighter. He talks about the house being like, feeling like when his mom was alive, because lately it's been just dead. So he thinks about how nice it is to be in a place where you have love and care and kindness. Anyway, they have like a moment together. It's really touching. But the cat jumps, there's a cat, and the cat jumps on the table, and the pickle dish falls, and Maddie starts crying, saying, oh my gosh, what is Xena gonna say? And Ethan was like, it's okay, I'll just buy another one. And she was like, you don't understand, she told me never to touch that. That's like her most precious possession in the world, and she's gonna be so mad at me. So Ethan says, don't worry about that, I'll get some glue or something, like I'll take care of it. And she says, okay. They do have a moment where they almost like touch hands, but they don't. And he kisses whatever she's working on. She's working on some like embroidery or something. She's sewing, and he kisses the piece that she's making. And it's so like, you can feel the tension, you can feel the love and the desperation, but they go to their bedrooms with not even touching hands. And he feels bad about that. When he's lying down in bed, he's like, oh, I wish I could have like touched her hand. Anyway, so the next day he goes and tries to find the glue for the pickle dish. He goes everywhere town looking for it. When he comes back home, he is on like his way to the house, and then he looks at the tombs, his parents' tombs, and he just dreams about being buried with Maddie in the tombs. He gets home, he opens the door, and Maddie's there, and she says Xena's home already. And he's like, oh no, because he wanted to have a moment with Maddie. He wanted to make a move, and he also wanted to glue the pickle dish back together. But then he goes upstairs to talk to Xena, and Xena's like, so Maddie has to leave. I'm really, really sick. The doctor said that I can't do any work around the house anymore. I have to just stay put. So she has to leave. And then, like you realize, is she really sick? First of all, even if she is, she hasn't been done anything. Okay, Maddie does things. Sorry, I had to. My neighbor was here. So anyway, even if she is sick, like Maddie does things around the house. She doesn't do anything, just stays like lying in bed, stays in bed all day. So yeah, you kind of realize that she senses, well, we know that she does because she noticed that he shaves every morning, but we know that she's trying to get rid of Maddie, and that's like, period. She's trying to get rid of Maddie, and she's going to do everything in her power to do that, to do so, including sending her off to, where, I don't know, to the world, like with no prospects or anything. So it's horrible. When Ethan listens to that, he's like, what is happening? Like, you can't do that to her. And she said, no, I have to, and I have a hired girl coming. He was like, a hired girl? Are you crazy? We can't even afford like things for the farm. We're poor. You're a poor man's wife, Xena. We can't. And she's like, well, do you not care about me? Is it to this extent? To the extent that you rather me like die or something? And he's like, I can't pay like someone to take care of you. Maddie's here, and we don't pay her, but we know that she just wants to get rid of her. So it's quite sad. And at this point, I'm like, Ethan, do something. but he can't really do anything, right? He's married, like he has responsibility. He's very loyal to Xena, at least. Well, he is loyal to her. But anyway, if I've said too much and you don't want any more spoilers, I recommend that you stop the video, go read the book, and then come back, because the ending is, it's an event. Let's put it that way. So she says she's not hungry, and he goes downstairs and has dinner with Maddie, and they kiss and embrace, and they have like an amazing moment together, and it's so beautiful, you guys. Look, the moment that they kiss. He had found her lips at last and was drinking unconsciousness of everything but the joy they gave him. So it's just like the moment we've been all waiting for. Not really, but yes, really, you know. So they have this moment together, and then Xena comes downstairs. She doesn't like see them or anything, but she comes downstairs and she says, I'm hungry now. And then she eats dinner and complains about the food that Maddie made. And then she goes get her medicine, and then Maddie says, oh, can I get the medicine for you? And she says, no, I'll get it myself. So she goes, oh yeah, before that, Ethan told Maddie that she's going away. Maddie is really upset. So Xena goes and gets the medicine, but the medicine is close to the pickle dish. So she comes back holding the pickle dish in her hand and starts like screaming, asking who did this, right? And then Ethan was like, the cat. And it was the cat. But in the end, Maddie said, oh, it was me. I just decided to use it. And she was like, why did you use it? This is like my, you know, prized possession. Why would you use this? I told you never to use this ever in the whole world, not even if the Pope comes. No, she doesn't say the Pope, she says like the Queen of England or something, or whatever. Not even if the Queen comes, we can't use this one, and I've told you this. So it just, the way that she holds it, that she holds the broken pieces, it's like a symbol of the marriage, right? So she's holding the marriage, the completely broken marriage that she has. And the pickle dish was a gift, a wedding gift, right? So she's just realizing that everything is probably broken forever. And she starts accusing Maddie of all things and saying that she's a bad girl coming from a bad family and that she wants her to leave. So it's decided. Maddie's leaving, and Ethan doesn't do anything again. He doesn't say anything. Everyone goes to their respective own bedrooms. And the next morning, when Jotham, the kid that works on the farm, he's supposed to bring Maddie to the station. And then Ethan says, no, you're not taking her to the station. I'm taking her to the station. And then Xena was like, no, you're not. Like, you have to stay home. I want you to stay home. And he says, basically, I don't care about what you want me to do. I'm bringing her to the station. And they have that moment where both of them, of course, know the feelings that they have for each other. So they have this last moment together of embracing each other and going to the train station. But they stop at a hill, and Ethan asks if she wants to go down the hill on the sledge. She says, yeah, sure. So they go, and they have this beautiful moment together. And she's like, oh, aren't you scared? And he was like, no, I know everything here. There was a big tree, and he says, if I wanted, I could go directly to the tree. That's how well I know my way down the hill. And they go up the hill again, and then she starts crying, and she says, I want to go down the hill, but this time I don't want to come back. So basically saying that it's better to both of them die together than to live separately, because we know that her life is going to be horrible after this, because she has no family, no prospects, nothing. Like, who knows what she's going to end up being or doing. It's really hard. She's a really, really tough book to read. But yeah, she says that she would rather basically die with him, both of them die, than be apart. And he holds her, and then they change places, and she holds him because he wants to feel her embrace. And they go down the hill, and Ethan drives the sledge to the tree. However, before he hits the tree, he has an image of his wife, Xena, in his head, and that makes him dodge the tree a bit. And they end up very hurt. Ruth, who is Maddie's friend, one of her friends, and who is marrying Ned Hale's son, she's the first to find them. And she tells the narrator that they were like in really rough shape. Maddie basically became a paraplegic, and Ethan is, well, disabled, but like kind of crooked. He still walks and everything, but she can't walk anymore. And she was in really, really rough shape. And then after that, Xena got better from her disease that the doctor said she's going to die from. But she is apparently doing good because she starts taking care of them, right? So it's really, really sad to see how something so pure turns into something so depressing and dark. So at the end, the last chapter goes back to the present, and that's when we go back to Ethan opening the door for him and the narrator to go into the house. And the voice during the book, when you're reading the book, you think that the voice, Carol's voice, is Xena, because Xena is super annoying. But when they go inside, she's cooking, and Maddie's the one who's talking nonstop and being super whiny because she obviously, like, it's been 24 years. She's paraplegic. She doesn't walk. She doesn't move. She barely moves, and she's forced to live in the house of the woman that wanted to put her out in the street, the wife of the man that she loves, and she has to live her life in that hell. There's even a part of the book where they say Ethan Frome, he looks like he's been living in hell, right? And that's basically what it is. The household of the Fromes became like hell. And there's also a part where someone says that the two Fromes in the tombstones look more alive, or are more alive than the ones in the house, because the house is actually like the tombstone, right? It's only death in there, is Ethan, Maddie, and Xena together living in that hell. So yeah, it's really sad. Honestly, I think it's one of the saddest books I've ever read, and the hopelessness is just so thick in this book. You can feel it, you can grab it, but it is beautiful. It's beautifully, beautifully written. Edith Wharton is such a gifted writer. And, well, George Eliot is still my favorite, but like, she's definitely one of my top 5 writers of all time. And sorry, my husband just got home. Anyway, but she's definitely like my top 5 favorite writers of all time now. And I want to read everything that she wrote. But I think especially, I know that most people read or like The Age of Innocence, but now I really want to read the other one, the other pastoral novel that she wrote, the summer one, which she calls the Hot Ethan, right? Is that what she calls? Yeah. Hot Ethan. Right. Yes, the Hot Ethan. She nicknamed it Hot Ethan. I told you this in the beginning of the video. Anyway, so yeah, I highly recommend this read. But like I said, if you are depressed or gravitating towards depression, don't pick this up as of yet. Try to, work on things before, because it's a hard one to read for sure. And I'm still finding myself thinking about it and thinking about the hell that the Frome household became at the end of this novel. So yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching, and thank you for following this challenge. And I'll see you hopefully very soon for the next one. For sure, July for the next one. We will read Carson McCullers with The Ballad of the Sad Cafe. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.